Amazon lays off 4,000 employees and blames AI. Let's talk about it. So welcome back to Dave is Not AI. My name's Dave, AI expert, AI skeptic. Let's get going. So on October 28, 2005, Amazon announced it would cut approximately 14,000 corporate jobs, representing about 4% of its 350,000 corporate employees. The layoff notification began that Tuesday. Today, actually, as recording this, the most affected workers being given 90 days to look for new internal positions, after which they would receive severance pay and support if not placed elsewhere in the organization. So Amazon's been kind of building up to this for some time, and I don't necessarily blame them for laying people off. I think that's a consequence of any business. Obviously, corporations, businesses are there to create profits. They're there to return, shareholder equity. And so they're going to do whatever they need to do to act in the best interest of the company. That's going to maximize revenue, and that's including letting people go. So I don't deny them that. What I am getting a little concerned of and a little sick of is when everybody does this and they immediately turn around. It's because AI. We're getting to an efficient state with AI where we're able to do things with fewer individuals. And I don't think I don't think Amazon is there yet. And it's a bit disingenuous that they're saying this at this point in time. So Amazon's official statement delivered by Beth Galetti, Senior Vice President of People Experience and Technology. Well, that's a title. Explain the reductions we're sharing today are a continuation of the work to get even stronger by further reducing bureaucracy, removing layers, and shifting resources to ensure we're investing in our biggest bets and what matters most to our customers' current and future needs. That's a paragraph really saying nothing. In other words, why'd you lay people off, things like that. It's a bunch of corporate gobbledygook, I think, that comes out of these kind of releases, which is a shame. I kind of wish people would just kind of tell it like it is. And I think if they don't do it, people realize that it is corporate gobbledygook and, take it as disingenuous, which I don't think is what they meant. But it's definitely how I take it, and many of you guys take it as well. Well, Amazon has cited the need to invest in artificial intelligence and streamline operations as reasons. There's a widespread industry skepticism about the validity of blaming AI for these workload reductions. You couldn't agree more. Amazon is not at a state where they have significant optimization around utilization of AI or any technology where they would, given their current revenue loads, in other words, all things being growing, that they would let people go. We're just not at a point where you can start, letting 14,000 people go, with the excuse that we're going to use AI to replace those roles and those responsibilities. And organizations just aren't there yet. So Amazon's kind of another instance of it, and we covered this, in this channel before, where companies are just blaming AI as an easy scapegoat for why they're laying people off. The reality is they overhired. They're not making enough money, that they're not making as much money they thought they would be making. And those are the reasons. And so why don't you just go ahead and say so? Because what's going to happen is shareholders and employees and general public are going to expect Amazon to, show some tangible benefits from the use of AI. And I don't think they're going to show any benefits in the short term. That's the reality of it right now. So keep in mind, financial pressures are the actual driver for this. Evidence points to cost cutting, declining sales growth, and competitive pressures, not automation or AI adoption, as the main drivers behind the layoffs. The public messaging around AI distracts from less glamorous business realities, such as stagnant revenue and shareholder demands for higher margins. That's the real reason they're laying people off. And I'm not sure why they don't go ahead and say it, but whatever reason, I think they find the fact that we're leveraging technology as a force multiplier for a business, and therefore we're able to do a lot more with fewer people, is the go-to for many of the companies out there right now. But people are in the know around where we sit in terms of our AI maturation in the corporate world. Certainly it's a great technology and people should invest in it. But as far as it being at a point where it's going to be able to displace thousands of workers right now. Most organizations aren't anywhere close to that. And I think it's going to be a while before they are. In fact, many of the corporations and that laid people off basically as a prerequisite to the fact that they're moving to AI, and we covered a few of them here, found out pretty quickly that they did so too quickly, and they had to hire people back, and they had PR problems, things like that. And they wish they didn't lay people off and give AI as a reason. And I think we're going to do the same thing with you right now. I think that ultimately companies that are doing this, they don't look very good. At the end of the day, people know exactly what's happening, and they're not necessarily going to give them credit for this. It's going to be a negative. So AI investment is a strategic priority, not the cause for cuts, I think, at the end of the day. So in other words, we're moving toward AI as a strategic differentiator for many of the businesses out there, but using this as a direct reason to start cutting heads, again, as we talked about a minute ago, is going to be exactly the opposite you should do. And it's going to blow back on many of these companies that are doing it right now. So Amazon, like its peers, is investing heavily in AI. However, the investment is incremental and does not immediately translate into large-scale job eliminations. Most AI-related projects are long-term, and current technology adoption has not advanced far enough to automate tens of thousands of white-collar roles overnight. I couldn't agree with that enough. You got to remember, AI is good at replacing tasks. In other words, it's able to do things, tactical things, very, very well. I use it all the time. It's certainly, a productivity gain for me, but it typically doesn't replace people. People are able to use AI as a force multiplier for whatever they do. And as we looked at in terms of how AI is being deployed within the corporate world, the majority of it, I think 80%, is around personal use of AI by employees. In other words, every employee using AI in a different way to automate whatever their job is, not necessarily a corporate strategy. And I think we're going to see that goes on for a while. And if they're able to do that, they're able to leverage AI in an effective way where it's able to increase their productivity. So the enterprises should encourage that, but not necessarily try to figure out what state can we get to before we start pushing people out of the company to reduce costs. So scapegoating AI reduces broader structural issues. Citing AI as a sole factor overlooks other ongoing structural changes, such as overhiring during the pandemic, which was a huge issue, inefficiencies and internal political considerations within these companies. These deeper issues, if unaddressed, could continue to surface regardless of the technological enhancements. Couldn't agree more. It doesn't fix a culture by doing that. And in fact, I think it will hurt your culture. If the culture is we're going to lay people off and lie about the reasons that we're doing it, and many of the employees understand that, that's not necessarily going to reflect well on you. And you got to remember, Amazon has competitors via everything it does, via AWS, and certainly its retail business, highly successful, logistics system, highly successful website. I'm sure everybody uses it. However, there's other options out there, and quickly, customers, the market will change their suppliers of their goods and services in a minute if they view the supplier of those goods and services to be bad actors. And I think Amazon's not necessarily there yet, but I think they're getting there. And they kind of have to watch themselves right now. Erosion of trust from employees and investors. So, looking at layoffs to AI risks eroding trust among Amazon staff, future recruits, and the public. So, would you take a job with Amazon now if they're, quickly laying people off? That has to be a core question out there. So when the actual motivations, costs, and performance targets come to light, it generates resentment, skepticism, and potential backlash as stakeholders perceive the lack of transparency and honesty. So I really wish companies would get out of the mode of giving platitudes and talking in ways that are corporate mumbo jumbo, like the press release we talked about earlier, but tell us, tell the employees, tell your customers exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it. I think the openness and transparency and honesty will pay dividends coming back. When I run companies and I was CTO of a bunch of publicly traded companies, always told the truth, no matter what kind of trouble it got me into. And the reason why is because I think people deserve it. And people who are working for me, people who are my customers, people who are my clients, they want to be told with as much honesty as possible exactly what's going on and how they should think about the business. And I think that's going to present some positive outcomes. So framing the cuts as an AI problem may help Amazon weather short-term PR storms and regulatory scrutiny, but it undermines the credibility and narrative around innovation. As the reality sets in, this could weaken morale, harm recruitment, and reduce loyalty among customers and partners who value transparency. And I guarantee you what is going to happen with Amazon is suddenly they're going to see a boom in their business at some point in time, maybe not this year, maybe next year or the year after that. And they're going to scurry around to hire back the people that they need to allow their business to scale, obviously because AI is not in there doing anything of significance yet. And they need people to run the organization. At the end of the day, organizations are just a collection of people that carry out particular activities. And if you don't have enough people, you're not going to be able to scale. And obviously, I know that there's an optimization curve where you don't need that many people to continue hiring to run the business. That's obviously going to be develop cost overruns and lack of profitability and efficiency problems as well. But you need to understand that you're going to have to hire in that environment. You're going to have to sell in that environment. And in many cases, we look to organizations to kind of, lead the way in terms of what they're doing, how they're doing it, and the reasons we should work for the organization, buy their stuff, invest in the organization, buy their stock. And it's falling off, I think, the charts in many instances. Amazon could have done some much better things here. So while Amazon cites AI as a reason for its largest layoffs in years, the reality suggests more conventional business motivations, overhiring, not enough revenue, things like that. So by analyzing the facts and context, it becomes clear that blaming AI is more of a convenient narrative device than an accurate explanation. So one could have lasting repercussions for trust, reputation. And I think that's where they're going to end up here. So in other words, they're going to look back at this in a year and say, that wasn't really the smartest thing to do. Number one, they've already threatened their employees. I remember, I think I wrote about it or talked about it here on this YouTube channel. They said, hey, we're going to use AI and we're going to get rid of a lot of people. And nothing was announced at that time. And I think they were prepping the fact that they were going to at one time start laying off people in the organization. That has the opposite of the desired effect. You think it's going to motivate people. You think it's going to gain interest in the company from the investors out there who look at how these guys are optimizing AI to deliver a better profit margin. It does none of that. It makes you look silly. It makes you look disreputable. And it backfires, almost each and every time. And we have dozens of these case studies that have happened in the last year or so when many of these companies have come out, laid people off, in some kind of a knee-jerk reaction, said AI was going to basically take us to the next level. AI was not able to take them to the next level. And their customers got mad at them, and certainly their employees got mad at them, and then their investors got mad at them. And so they saw their stock price drop and people calling for their heads, and they ended up hiring people back and in essence hitting the reset button on each and every one of those. And they found out very quickly that AI, while great technology, is not miracle working stuff. In other words, it has to be used in the context of a lot of smart people that understand how to use it. And I think there's this, misunderstanding of what the technology does and the actual value it's able to bring to the enterprises. And we'll cover that on this channel, and hopefully it starts making more sense to people. Well, anyway, interesting story. Let me know what you think in the comments about this, whether you think Amazon is doing the right thing or the wrong thing. I'd love to hear it. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, check out my other videos on this channel and check out my cloud computing blog on InfoWorld. And of course, my new book, An Insider's Guide to Cloud Computing. So until next week, you guys stay very, very safe. Later.